All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. In this video, we're going to talk about Terence Crawford team having called out Jermell Charlo, looking to fight him at 154, and how now is the perfect time for them to do it because Jermell Charlo no longer has a fight coming up next. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. In this video, we're going to talk about the 154-pound division and a possible move to 154 by Terence Crawford. We had some bad news that took place yesterday where Jermell Charlo and Brian Castano's fight got pushed back or got canceled because of an injury to Brian Castano. However, there's a double whammy on it because the WBO is now asking Brian Castano to show cause as to why he should not have to fight his mandatory Tim Tszyu of Australia. Now, before I get into the discussion, please, thank you so much to everybody that is subscribed to the channel and watches the videos on a regular basis. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you can be notified of when we release more videos. And also hit that like button on your way out the door after you get done watching the entire video. All right, so let's get into this. Brian Castano and Jermell Charlo were supposed, two relevant facts. Brian Castano was supposed to be fighting Jermell Charlo I think it was in March, but right in a few weeks, not too long from now, for an undisputed championship at 154 pounds. Unfortunately, Brian Castano now claims that he cannot take the fight then and he needs to get it pushed back because he has a minor tear in his bicep that happened during sparring. Now, the problem is, first of all, Jermell Charlo is flat out saying he doesn't believe it, saying that this is the second time that Brian Castano was pulled this. He doesn't believe it, and so he's upset about it. But more importantly, the WBO, the sanctioning body that Brian Castano is the championship for, is saying, look, you have to show us cause as to why we should let you have this fight. This is the second time you pushed this fight back out, and you have a mandatory challenge for the WBO belt against Tim Tszyu of Australia. So now they have 24 hours to show the WBO, to show them cause as to why they should not order him in his next fight to fight Tim Tszyu. Now, the likelihood of, I'm not sure what the likelihood of the WBO allowing Brian Castano to fight Jermell Charlo again and not forcing the Tim Tszyu fight, because honestly, man, that seems like some gamesmanship over there, with some promotional gamesmanship to me. The WBO, if the WBO actually forces that mandatory, then you know what kind of game it is. It's Tim Tszyu, who's a big money fighter in Australia, forcing his way in to get that fight to block the undisputed title. And I think that that there is a high likelihood that the WBO will do that, which opens up an opportunity for Terence Crawford, who said through his people that he is looking to move up to 154 pounds and fight the winner of Jermell Charlo versus Brian Castano. If that's the case, and if he wants to do it, this is the perfect opportunity for those guys to do it. Jermell Charlo, I do not believe that they could do it in that short a time frame, within a couple weeks. However, if they attempt to push the fight back, and then the fight gets canceled by the WBO, then Jermell Charlo needs a dance partner, and there's no better dance partner than Terence Crawford moving up to 154 pounds for a fight that would be a tremendous event. And I think the perfect opportunity for Terence Crawford to get in a good position with, as far as making major fights for his career. As of right now, at 147 pounds, there's so many different things standing in the way of a Errol Spence Jr. Terence Crawford fight, or a Terence Crawford fight with anybody in the PBC, that it just doesn't look like it's going to be reasonable for at least this year. And those things that stand in the way are, for example, there's a mandatory fight. There's a IBF mandatory that's coming up for Errol Spence Jr., which will be the winner of Brian Castano. Excuse me, will be the winner of Jaron Ennis versus Custio Clayton. Also have a WBA mandatory that is coming up for the winner of Errol Spence Jr. and Yordanis Ugas, which is going to be the winner of Stanosis versus Butiev for the WBA regular title. And then you have, of course, another potential mandatory coming up with the WBC that looks to be Keith Thurman for the WBC mandatory. So all of those fights that are over there with Errol Spence Jr., all the mandatories are in-house mandatories for the PBC. Well, I mean, with the exception of Jaron Ennis, Jaron Ennis fights on Showtime, but I've never heard him actually referred to as a PBC fighter, but he definitely fights on Showtime cards, and Showtime is consistently dealing with the PBC. So, and on top of that, he's been fighting other fighters that have been fighting on PBC cards, like Chris Van Heerden, right? So I would kind of bucket him in there with the PBC fighters. And if he does have a WBO mandatory, this is Terence Crawford, then that WBO mandatory probably is going to be somebody like a Virgil Ortiz, or if Bob Arum, which Bob Arum has liked to do, have Josh Taylor move up and be in a position to get that fight mandated for Terence Crawford for the WBO, even though the WBO, now that I recall, is actually his last mandatory was the WBO against Sean Porter. So that's got a year. I think you have to do that every year. But hey, man, that was 2020 and this is 2021. So the mandatory very well may pop up a lot quicker than usual when you're dealing with the WBO, especially when you're dealing with the WBO and a top ranked fighter. So this is a good opportunity for Terence Crawford to move up to 154 pounds and try to challenge Jermell Charlo for those three belts. I don't think it's a situation where it'll be a pay-per-view fight, a situation where it'll be a fight that would be a highly anticipated and exciting fight that a lot of people would be interested in. I don't think that there's nearly the money issues that there is when you're dealing with, a fight between Terence Crawford and Keith Thurman, or Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. It's just something that has a better chance of being made and a better route for Errol Spence Jr. Because if Terence Crawford is able to beat Jermell Charlo, that, in my opinion, locks him as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. He's one fight away from a unification fight if he winds up having to fight Brian Castano after Brian Castano fights Tim Tszyu. If Brian Castano beats Tim Tszyu, right, which if he's forced to in a purse bid, that fight more than likely is going to go to Australia. And Tim Tszyu, and I don't know who would win that fight. Tim Tszyu in Australia may very well get the call. If Tim Tszyu gets the call for that WBO belt, you can almost forget Jermell Charlo getting that fight with Tim Tszyu, because they're just going to protect that belt and keep Tim Tszyu as a champion down there in Australia. But all in all, man, I think it's a reasonable thing. Terence Crawford's people said he wanted to fight, so this is the opportunity. Let's hope that they go for it. That's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.